Pentatonic, whole tone and chromatic scales fall away as bases for building chords, because they are not bases for making meaningful combinations. The code for understanding relationships in human society is in the framework of relationships between the so-called tones. Since the distances between the musical tones, which are marked with the Arabic numerals 1, 2, 3, 12, are of a half degrees each, this means that the distance from A to B is 1 step, and from B to C is half a step. That is, a minor natural scale. A quint on every quintacad is pure, of 3½ degrees, except that on the 7 of the major scale, that is, on the 2 of the parallel minor, natural, scale, it is diminished 1/3 degrees. On the 3 minor melodic degree, it is increased by 4 degrees, and on the 7 minor harmonic degree, it is decreased by 3 degrees. And G7 is major of 5½ degrees, 7, and on the 7 of the minor harmonic, the minor 7th is reduced so that it is there by 4½ degrees. The starting position is always counted as no 1, 1. So we have a kind of kinship between the fundamental tones. It means, Agia is a man who has no inclination towards knowing things, that is, he is not interested in other things, except for respecting the positive norms of society and maintaining life. And if he is +5, then he has a strong need for sexual relations. Chord pairings follow a certain order that Franz Liszt made available to himself, and this can be seen even more simply in the works of his student Isaac Albeniz. If you allow yourself to make a regressive harmonic movement, no harm. All pop music is composed without regard to the rules of harmonic motion. Composing only in steps, so-called harmonic progressions, are characteristic of composers with a penchant for the absolute, and some cheap connections are mostly used by pop music composers. According to the graphic attachment above, it is visible that, just as in cheap harmonic connections in music, there are also cheap, worthless, connections between people. Regressive relationships of people are part of everyday life. However, the fact that a human structure is higher in frequency does not mean that it is more valuable to the universe. The work production capacity of the brain and intelligence according to the norms of the universe are two things. In some being, absolute intelligence is expressed by conscious selflessness, in the attitude of not doing anything to others that one does not want as suffering, and not that absolute intelligence is the ability to gather data and operate with it. Of course, a person with a stronger working productive brain will sooner come to the realization of the meaning of life and to respect the constructive norms of behavior and attitudes, but selflessness is still a special talent. Why is this understanding of chord patterns in music important for anyone who wants to understand the essence and duration, lifespan, of the cosmos? There are electromagnetic waves from radio to gamma vibrations. We humans are shown some sense in the whole range of them. In the middle of the set of all wavelengths, from radio to gamma, we are shown the spectrum of colors, and in the middle of them are sound vibrations for our ears. Each tone has its own color. Colors are revealed to us as a spectrum for the eyes, and after that a spectrum for the sense of hearing is revealed to us. Tones. A tone is not produced by flickering electromagnetic waves but by flickering something material. So John the Evangelist mixed up the opening order of things. In order for someone to hear something, he must first be born, but before the sense of hearing arose anywhere, something had to be created that would flicker soundly, not as light. Therefore, material things had to be created, i.e. chemical elements. Let us suppose that at the absolute beginning of this cosmos there was an enormous sum of energy. It is inevitable for any imagining and thinking about the cosmos. In that sum of energies we have the first absolute rest. But then once, how, when and why, God knows, that sum of energy flickers. Then that sum of energy is no longer the dark mass of the basic form of energy, but immediately becomes a phase of happening, that is, the great opening begins. Everything becomes the dark mass of the 11th form of energy. At the same time, both phases arise, the happening phase and the remembering phase. Imagine the opening of the hard shell of a walnut and how the shoot of the future tree emerges from it. There is no use of force, it happens by itself. In the program of the fruit of the nut there is an opening for the programmed germ. If we think that animals acquire the organs they need for maintenance and reproduction, just because they want it, need it, we can find an excuse in the fact that they cooperate with the set of all possibilities on their minds. But the opening of the nutshell, so that the sprout, the green shoot of the plant, comes out unbroken, is already completely determined in the set of all possibilities. Like opening a woman's pelvis to let out a child. Female animals did not want that for themselves. Because even though there is no compulsion, there is severe pain. Maybe the cosmos was born in the pain of something, not just someone. Portions of the basic form of energy falling into the first lower condensate become a set of chemical elements, on the range of electromagnetic waves from ultraviolet to infrared. Chemical elements are also the tones we get to know on the spectrum of sound vibrations that belong to music. but there are many more than our eyes and ears can register. So we don't have to wonder what and where there is a much larger amount of energy than the one that our astrophysicists are measuring and looking for. This means that there are many more chemical elements in the cosmos than on Earth. All the chemical elements in the cosmos already exist in our galaxy. There are exactly 360 of them. Later, I will explain in another place what this means for us on planet Earth. Just as in music we have connections of polarized chords, in 3 groups of 4, as in the sketch above, on squares of 3 colors, so chemical elements are also polarized, and it is not meaningful to connect each with each. Just as it is not the same in music, and even less among people, which are also chords in kinship relationships, as I explained. Earth's chemical elements are embodied by falling from the primary dark mass to the 3 lower aggregate states, to 7 frequency divisions of the entire range of electromagnetic vibrations of the dark mass, to the parallel period of the stable chemical elements of Mendeleev's system. During those periods, not only dark mass frequencies for basic chemical elements but also for their isotopes fall into the condensates. The resulting chemical elements do not form chords, as in music, but sometimes exist independently, and sometimes fall into mixtures of elements and isotopes, with all the possible accords or conflicts in the blends. An interesting question with them is, what causes everything in the cosmos to spin? Thus, before the primary dark mass becomes the general scene of happening and memory, the sum of energy from her falls into the chemical elements. This does not mean only a structural drop of material manifestations from the 4th aggregate state to the 3 lower ones, but also a temperature shock. But no matter how long that temperature shock lasts, still, the cause of the general rotation in the cosmos is gravity as magnetism by the spheres. We have said, and it is not harmful to repeat, dark mass, as a factor of maintaining the general state and relations in the cosmos, is general gravitation as magnetism by transferences, effective on intergalactic relations. Magnetism by spheres is characteristic within galaxies, constellations, and in the relationships between planets and asteroids. The first emissions of variously large portions of energy from the fluid into material formations create mixtures of chemical elements, and those mixtures fall into the nuclei of the mixture, and thus the material mixture becomes a dynamo for endless rotation, until the planets, stars, constellations and galaxies cool down. However, this cooling of matter in the cosmos is of quite uncertain duration. Because every rotation, friction, means an increase in temperature. So, fire, explosion. When some fluid dark mass emission falls into the 3rd aggregate state and does not become a mixture, then, depending on the size, it lasts as a nebula or becomes an asteroid. Chemical reactions on cosmic bodies, sometimes explosive solutions, are the results of mixtures and compounds of chemical elements, as we have just mentioned, of their direct contact. What is the sum of raw energy for all galaxies? What relationships,